Yeah, is that a dead laser there? Thanks for having me. This is a unique experience. My name is Doug McMillan. I work at Atlassian. I've been at Atlassian for 5 months, so the Atlassian experience is new to me. Before this, or let me try to do a different angle on it. I started my professional career working in New York City, and I wanted to be Don Draper, and I did the Mad Men thing. And so I started out in advertising and very quickly moved into digital advertising and digital marketing and everything to do with technology-driven customer acquisition at the very, very, very early days. And so I worked in performance marketing, and then I worked in search engine marketing. One of my first jobs I got off of Craigslist. Yeah, so that was the situation. I was in search engine marketing, and I was doing it for a startup of about 6 people and figuring out how to hack it with my own using back-end technology. I was actually using commission junction technology back in the day to run search campaigns on Google. And then one day I got called by Microsoft when they wanted to build a product that they ended up calling Bing. And so I was number 6 on the Bing team that grew to about 300 and God knows how many, and was part of my early foundation of my career was going on the road and competing with Google and trying to understand how to connect with customers and teach them about search engine marketing, and got my early days, touring the country and speaking to like every Fortune 500 company you could imagine. So every day I was at some boardroom speaking to an audience and teaching them about the latest technology and how to use that to accomplish their business objectives. And that sort of became my passion, was being the person who's at the very forefront of whatever is the new technology coming out, and being a little bit of the whipping boy, so to speak. I don't know if that's an appropriate analogy, but let's just use that. They would put someone in the front, so we need to build out this new product. And we know we need to understand a new market. And we need someone to be the first one to go figure out how to do that, and go talk to a bunch of customers and talk to product and talk to marketing and try to like mix it all together into something that makes sense so that we can put emotion around it and then hire 200 salespeople and get them to go sell a product. And that's kind of what I've been doing most of my career. I did it for mobile devices. When iPhone first came out, I was the first guy out there talking about why you need to do search engine marketing and the mobile advertising on phones. And then I worked in mobile attribution analytics for app marketers and gaming, and I did that for a while. And then I worked at Disney, and I was the guy putting ads into games or building games around ads at Disney. And so I've had quite an interesting career doing a bunch of wild things. And now I'm in Atlassian, and I'm in Phoenix today. And so I was telling you a couple stories. I haven't really spent a lot of time in Phoenix. It is beautiful. I love seeing the landscape. And I grew up in Connecticut in the woods. And then I lived most of my life in New York City.
I hope you're enjoying the cold spell.
I have done 1 year in Austin, Texas. So I live in Austin, Texas now. They say it was one of the least terrible summers that they've had in a long time. So far, so good. I'm enjoying Austin. I'm enjoying Atlassian. Right before this, I worked at Accenture. So I was in consulting and working with large companies in generative AI. And so primarily on the consumer space and the marketing space, so how to use generative AI to build out, let's say if you're the largest consumer products goods in the world, company in the world, and you need to make 7,000 different iterations of different images for your products, for different variations that go in from country to country, from product to product, and then how do you scale the production of the images and all the copy that goes along with it to push it out to all the major retailers around the world. I was working on a generative AI solution for that. And that's when I landed in Austin. And that's when I was at a pool party in Austin, and I met a fantastic woman who called me 3 months later and said, I have this role, and it's kind of a unicorn role, but I think you're kind of the right guy for it. And so I'm kind of the unicorn right now on a team that is growing in Atlassian that represents AI and Rovo. Yeah, and so Rovo, show of hands, first time you've heard the word, or are we familiar with the word?
First time.
First time hearing the word.
Second time. First time was when I read about the invite for this meeting.
Okay. That's good for context. Others?
Learned about Rovo at team last year.
Yes. About Rovo team last year. Okay, cool. Last year. Yeah.
Same deal.
Same, yeah. Okay. And hi, everybody online. I don't know where you are, but hi to those online. Do we have a quick temperature check? Is there people online? Can you hear us? Are we good?
Yeah, I think so.
So, okay, that helps me to set some context. Yeah, I didn't know what Rovo was either. And it's become my 24/7 for the last 5-6 months. I live and breathe Rovo. And my job is to go meet the majority of our large customers in the United States and go represent Rovo, understand what customers are trying to do with it, work with our product and engineering team, understand what they're trying to do with it, and try to see if we can meet in the middle. Yeah. And so,
Can you just summarize what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rovo is the brand at Atlassian to package up our advanced AI features. Okay, so there's multiple different words that are multiple different brands sort of that exist in Atlassian today. We have an Atlassian Intelligence you may hear of, and we have Rovo. And sometimes there's some confusion what's one and what's the other, and I'll help you demystify that. They're one and the same. But if we're talking about the world of AI, let's land it there. And we're talking about generative AI and how that applies to the Atlassian world. Atlassian, of course, come on in, welcome, come on in. Atlassian, of course, as I picked up in the hallway, like Jira, right? That's how people mostly know Atlassian. So Atlassian started out 20-something years ago. It's an Australian company originally, built a product called Jira that helps with workflow management, project management, sort of the backbone, lifeblood of software development in many ways. Atlassian has a whole host of other softwares beyond Jira, right? So there's products like Confluence and Loom and on and on and on. And essentially, the quickest way to think about it is Atlassian is building out what they aim to be the system of work for companies, to be able to tie together business teams and technology teams so that everyone can be on the same page in terms of managing projects, managing strategy, managing delivery, to all this stuff together. And so there's a suite of different software technologies that all plug together, and you'll continue to see us talking about this system of work philosophy on tying business and technology teams together. Where does AI sit in that? In my point of view, that's some of the most exciting stuff happening. And so we have a team of about 500 people at Atlassian across the world that are focused on building AI throughout Atlassian. And we're focused on where we can build AI throughout not only our tool set, but also to be able to connect with the broader ecosystem of every other SaaS tool or data provider or other knowledge source, if you will, to be able to connect them so that when you're in the Atlassian ecosystem, when you're sitting in Jira, when you're sitting in Confluence, that you can interact with various AI experiences that will help you to find information or the knowledge that you're looking for and take action with that information. Yeah. And so Rovo is the brand wrapper under which all of Atlassian's most complex, sophisticated AI capabilities will be wrapped with it. Okay. So, all that being said, You can see it. It looks really small up there. When we're talking about AI is such a broad space right now. Literally, there's AI for everything, right? And it's one of the hardest parts about my job is when you're stepping in to introduce our products and technologies to try to solve something for a client, getting us on the same page is one of the hardest things to start the conversation. What are we talking about, right? I could talk to you for probably 3 hours just about AI as a subject, but to focus it, at Atlassian, we're really focused on AI for software engineering. And not just the code build, but actually the teamwork process that goes around software development. So each stage of the software development process and the software development lifecycle, how can you apply AI to make that experience faster, to make that experience more accurate? How do we apply robots to make the work more efficient so that people can focus on higher order tasks, right? So people can focus on strategy rather than robotic, repetitive tasks, okay? And so we're going to be talking a lot about AI for software engineering, not so much for the various other areas on the page here today. So Rovo, you beat me to the punch. We already started a little bit of the introduction. But Rovo is sort of 3 pillars, 3 ways to think about it, how we are building out the solution, being the bridge to your company's knowledge, wherever that knowledge may live. So that doesn't mean it has to be in Jira or Confluence. Your company's information could be in Google Drive. It could be in SharePoint. It could be in Slack. It could be in Salesforce, right? Rovo agents, I'm going to talk a lot about today. So agents, hottest topic in AI right now. How do we essentially add a wrapper on top of the LLM so that we can not just process information, but take action, right? The OpenAI just came out to, like the press just hit today that they're charging $20,000 for agents that have PhD level of experience. And I think it was $12,000 for coder level of experience and $10,000 for knowledge worker of experience. So AI agent, right, from OpenAI, the company who built ChatGPT. Salesforce their marketing is everywhere. If you're anywhere in the business world, there's Salesforce ads about their agent force, right? And what does that do? Microsoft, I don't know what Microsoft calls their agents, but Copilot is everywhere, right? I mean, Copilot is on the basketball stadium floor. I see ads for Microsoft Copilot, right? That's when you know you hit saturation. It's like when it's in the sporting arenas. My mom still doesn't know what it does, right? And probably never will. But agents are really the hot topic right now and will continue to be, because it's like, how do we transform this information into power? And then the last point here is about seamlessly integrating into your daily workflow. Okay, so one of the things that I hear most often is speaking to Fortune 500. So whether it's AT&T or T-Mobile or Chase Bank or Prudential or you name it, like we've got a pulse on what they're looking for. Most of these companies have bought or made a significant investment in Microsoft Copilot as an AI platform. They've probably invested in a couple other tools, and what they're challenged with right now is adoption. We bought this product. We see roughly 15 to 17 to 22% of our users are actually using it on a week-over-week, month-over-month basis. And so that's a significant problem, right? We made this huge investment. How do we actually transform that into usage? One of the main issues in the AI space right now, right? Hype curve, and now we're like, okay, we've got some of the tech out there, but what do we do with it? Like, okay, we've got some ideas of what we do with it, but how do you get people to use it, right? I mean, are you using AI right now?
Even Copilot isn't available to everyone. You have to request a license at CVS for it.
Yeah, yeah. How about, are you using?
If I get stuck.
Yeah. And stuck with what? Like
trying to write something based upon research, or if I'm trying to do like a summary.
Yeah.
And just feel a little bit lazy to be like, okay, just summarize this for me.
Yeah. Yeah. To help write more concisely or to make your text feel more professional.
Yeah.
In some ways, yeah.
I used to analyze data a lot. I'll throw in a whole spreadsheet
Yeah.
and ask it to show me the trends, and it can spit out some amazing
Awesome.
stuff.
Yeah, great use. Did you have
And
something?
then we've done a fair amount in Salesforce here just recently.
Mhm.
Have looked at Agentforce a little bit. And based on what I'm seeing on Reddit and a couple other places, a little bit underwhelmed, and then they're not actually getting out of it what they're looking to get out of it. Very technically,
It's a platform. What are you gonna do with it?
yes.
Right? I mean, I use GPT and Claude and Perplexity, and I use all of them. And more often than not, I'm using them, like I had, I'm trying to plan a family vacation for 20 family members. And I don't know how to plan a family vacation for 20 family members. So that was a good place to start. Like,
Do you have 18
No.
children by any chance?
no, actually. No, I have a disjointed family that I haven't had a whole lot of connection with. And they have like a family reunion thing, and I offered to help plan this year, trying to participate. I don't have 18 children. Good question. Moving on. But yeah, like, give it parameters and it researches the web and it comes back with a result, right? And so this is really, AI is primarily a language-based model that you can get set to go research a significant stack of information that's already pre-built, come back to me with a response, come back to me with an answer, and we can build upon that, right? Sort of core use case of AI. And so what we're really trying to do is how do we build a lot of these features and functionalities into the way that you work today so that it just becomes natural, right?
So would Rovo work across the different applications within Atlassian? Like say you're in Jira, and then there's Jira Align, which is something we're also looking at now. Could Rovo, would it connect to both of them? Because sometimes it's hard to know what button to hit and where to go to make things connect.
So the answer is yes, Rovo will be sort of everywhere throughout the platform when Rovo is aware of not just the information you have in that application, but any other application that you have connected to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So what is Rovo? Let's see, we're going to talk about agents. We're going to talk about some features. We talked about 3P connectors, data sources. We're going to talk about teamwork graph. Let's move on. A lot of these slides are sort of brand new. So, in case anybody want to think about it as a platform, it resonates with this type of schematic. Rovo is search, chat, agents, and an agent building technology that accesses multimodal support of various LLMs. So part of this sort of like next level of AI where we're at today is you don't necessarily have to think about the LLMs, right? It's sort of LLMs are quickly becoming a commodity. Whether you use GPT or Claude or Perplexity or DeepSeek from China, whatever you want, it's quickly becoming a commodity, and it's becoming the next level that the software vendors are plugging into. We will stream queries based on what is the right query based on what we understand the right way to operate it. But really, you don't need to worry about the LLM. What we're doing is connecting your data sources, whatever they may be. We have a meta layer of information that we call a teamwork graph. Our teamwork graph is Atlassian's way of understanding your teams, the way that you work, your goals, your knowledge. And so as you're operating within an Atlassian platform, our long-term vision is to really understand that teamwork perspective of how you work, who you work with, and use that to drive relevancy of your knowledge work and how we're powering these AI tools. Natural language search at its core foundation will soon be available across the Atlassian platform. And so you'll be able to search for not just documents, but you can ask it questions, right? Any kind of question you want.
How well are we tracking to?
How are we tracking towards XYZ goal? What were the major blockers in the last 3 months of my team's work? What have you, right?
Where's this document on Confluence?
Where is this document on Confluence? Thank you. I use that every single day.
That's my big one.
I use that on every single day. But take the next step further. Now you can also say, where was this document? And maybe it was referenced in a Slack conversation that you had 2 weeks ago, right? Maybe you're not sure which piece of information or which knowledge source it came from. Rovo understands based on our teamwork graph, the way that you work and where you have knowledge and information. So it's becomes smarter over time. So it might not just be in Confluence, but it might be something that you thought was in Confluence, but actually somebody sent you in Slack. Yeah. So we're getting to a place where, if not now, but very soon, that the robots are getting smart enough that you don't need to worry about where did I leave that damn document, right? Or who sent that to me? Where was that? Where was that conversation that I had 2 weeks ago, and how do I need to take advantage of it? Building upon search is the chat functionality. And so, as we are all aware, like GPT, right, you can chat with it, you can ask it questions, it will remember your history, it will remember the types of work that you do, and so it gives you more relevant information. It's also aware not only of the page that you're on, but your various pages across Jira, Confluence, on and on and on. So you can actually take action in chat. You can have it pull up a report, some information, create me a chart, and now publish it in Confluence and take that as an action right from chat. Agent building is where things get pretty wild, because now we can start talking about creating actual agents that are specific to you or your team or the way that you work, with specific knowledge sources and specific actions that you want it to take. And I'll show you a little bit what that looks like.
Is that kind of like creating your own GPT in ChatGPT?
Not quite, right? Because if the GPT is actually the LLM or the sort of like brain underneath it, the agent is a layer on top. It's like a very low code, no code way to say, I guess, power like a repetitive task that you may do. Okay. Yeah. Tell me the themes that came up in Jira on these last projects, consolidate it for me, write me a business case of what we need to do next. Okay. That could be an agent.
Got it.
Yeah. Powered by GPT underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Here's some examples of AI in the flow of the work. This slide is too small for you to see. Teamwork graph, I talked about a little bit, but it's an interesting philosophy. Okay. You'll see more and more of this from Atlassian as we continue to build out this vision. Teamwork graph as a meta layer of information will be across all Atlassian products. And it's really about understanding your teams, your goals, your work, and your knowledge, and then using that to power relevancy. So when I go to Rovo in my Atlassian experience and I ask it for what did my team accomplish this week, it's aware of who the people are that I interact most frequently. And not necessarily based on an org chart, but based on who actually touches documents that I touch and who works on what. And so this teamwork graph powers not only the Atlassian ecosystem, but as we connect to third-party data sources as well, so Teams and Slack and Google and et cetera, we overlay teamwork graph information on that too. Okay. Here's an example of sort of how teamwork graph applies in real life. So what it says here, please provide a short summary, top 3 things my team achieved this week. I put that into the chat. Chat responds, says your team responded to incident hot 456, closed an important decision about the next epic, and deployed the new landing page to production. Your team's cycle time improved by 5%. And it references the documents that it found. You notice that there are from various different sources, right? But it's also understanding a relation of how you work to be able to provide that. From there, you can build on that, right? So you can then ask questions. Take the decision doc and help me write a draft for the team retro blog. Okay, now we're starting to get more interesting in what you can do with it. This week, our team accomplished 2 major goals. Hot incident response, we quickly resolved this incident. milestone decision, we made a key decision on the next epic. And then boom, create page, right? And you'll create a page in Confluence, a nice write-up. You can share it with your team. You can have an automation to publish on Slack once a week, etc. So we're really talking about innovative ways to get work done. What's an agent? Well, we have 4 flavors of agents right now. We have out-of-the-box agents. So Atlassian, primarily a software development company, we have about 14,000 employees globally, roughly 7,000 of which are in some sort of software development adjacent capacity. And so we're all very actively sort of hacking this Rovo platform and building tools that we use in our day-to-day work. Through that process, we've come up with about 20 out-of-the-box agents that exist today. I'm sure there'll be a bunch more at the team announcement again. But these are the out-of-the-box agents that they're just right there. They're in the drop-down menu. You can select them anytime. I'll show you what some of them look like. There's thought starters, really, okay? You can take those out-of-the-box agents. You can open them up. You can see how they were written. You can see what knowledge sources they're pointed at. You can see what actions are aligned with them, and you can tweak it. Save it as your own. Update, edit, change, right? There's a third-party marketplace. It's brand new. I haven't seen a whole lot about it yet, but it's like App Store for agents, right? So third-party companies are building best-of-breed agents out there as well. Whole new economic opportunity. And then lastly, for the geeks out there, we can build agents on Forge platform. Anybody Forge builder here?
Trying to get in there.
Trying to get in it. Okay, I'm not even that close. So,
Heard about it.
yeah, heard of it, right? Forge is our platform. You can get really under the hood and build all kinds, pretty much anything you want to build in the Forge platform with an agent. So if you want to build a custom connector to a custom data source, you could do that in Forge. Yeah, but that's where like the most complex, most serious kind of stuff happens. My counterpart, we kind of tour the country and talk to everybody. He's the technical side of the house. He's an expert in the Forge platform, and so that's sort of where he came into it, and that's where he sees the excitement and the value. You'll see him in a little bit in a video. Here's a bunch of the agents, okay? So what you'll notice here is agents that are software dev focused, but you also notice agents that are pretty broad, right? Communications crafter, Rovo expert, you can ask it questions about itself. User manual writer, global translator, service helper, Jira theme analyzer, on and on and on, right? So there's all kinds of different use cases. You know, the reality is, like, in this generative AI space, there's so many things you can do with it that we're still in a market where people are trying to find what they want to do best with it. What we're seeing and where I'm having the most interesting conversations is around product management, project management, software dev, Scrum Master. These types of roles are getting a lot out of the sort of Atlassian flavor of tools on our platform. You can do a lot of knowledge worker type of things in a Copilot, but it's not going to have the same sort of flavor and proximity to the Atlassian workflow is what we're building here. So we're really focused on, like, how do we make the Atlassian experience best, and then pull in all the knowledge sources from outside to make your job easier.
Well, because if you're trying to use Copilot, you're either copying and pasting things.
Yes.
Or if you're in the Edge or something, you can pull it up in the sidebar, but it's only looking at that one page.
Yes.
So this is like in the tool.
Yes,
in
the tool, and then as you get deeper into it, when you're starting to talk about the actions that you can take, and how does it actually, you build it into automations and things like that. Like a third party is never going to have the same access to suite of automations that it would in our platform. Yeah. And so when we're building an agent, right, here's our product requirements guide. So you can pull this up anywhere in the Atlassian ecosystem. Some questions. Can you identify themes in the Jira issues? What are the top themes of my recent issues product? Help me group my Jira ideas into themes. It's got a goals character, knowledge, and action. And so as you sort of open up the hood underneath these agents, you can actually program it for specific ways that your team works, right? You can program it so that, if there are specific brand guidelines or things that you need to adhere to, you can build that into the agent as a safety measure. The knowledge piece, if anyone's heard around the term RAG, retrieval augmented generation, that's another hot AI term. This is our version of RAG. So to be able to point the LLM at specific knowledge sources to reference to make its decision. So you can actually control where it's looking, or you can control it in a way. One of our examples is if you have your agile best practices written up somewhere in Confluence, you can program the agent to be referencing your agile best practices in Confluence or any other best practices that you have in Confluence, etc., such that its responses are going to be programmed based on the knowledge source that you share with it.
Like the GPTs.
Yes.
Yeah.
We talked about theme analyzer, release notes drafter, bug report assistant, all that kind of stuff. A little bit deeper on SaaS connectors. These slides are so small up here, but this is like the ecosystem we have built out today. We're continuing to build them out, and you'll continue to see more and more. So the vision is that we will have the whole sort of world of SaaS connected, whether it's WebEx, whether it's Salesforce, what have you, right? Zoom and beyond. This is what's available today. It's up on our website. Figma, GitHub, Outlook Mail just came out, Slack, SharePoint, Loom, of course, our video products, Google Drive, Microsoft Teams, etc., Box. GitHub, by the way, is a unique connection for us. I was in a meeting with pretty heavy powered financial services executive, and they said, listen, what we want is for our development teams, we want them to have one monitor that's on GitHub and using GitHub Copilot, and the other monitor we want Atlassian using Rovo. And that's our vision for our development teams. And we're pretty excited about that. So we're not trying to win the world of code generation right now. GitHub Copilot, code generation, that whole thing, it's working pretty well. We have a connector with GitHub extension, so that if you're in a GitHub Copilot environment, or if you're in your IDE there, you can actually ask Atlassian, and it will then connect through Rovo into your entire Atlassian world, or your Rovo world there. So you can pull up information about products and projects and standards and any kind of information that you want to find. It will then cycle across the Atlassian ecosystem and pull the result of the information right into the GitHub experience. So you don't have to leave the coding environment. Yeah.
What's really huge with that, especially if you have companies with these really large and really old data sets, like, hey, we have stuff going back to the beginning of time in SharePoint. Sure. All of our new hire documentation that never gets touched unless we absolutely need it. Plus, we've also migrated a bunch of stuff into Confluence, and having something like this, we could take, say, all right, I need to refresh all of this information. Where does it live? Or, hey, I'm in a different situation than I would normally be. What are other teams doing in the same space? Like, how is this one team doing their onboarding, and how do they handle these particular type of issues? Just getting it into one place would be an incredible time saver for stuff.
Yeah, then if you did get it all into one place, then you could go and do more analysis to say, why is every team doing it differently? You can figure out where you go streamline all your processes.
Yeah, because like having 10 different versions of similar documentations with different flavors, and which one am I looking at? Which one hasn't been groomed recently? Which one is completely out of date? Which one is for a team that doesn't exist anymore?
Yeah.
That would be huge, because then trying to get to like a single source of data, regardless of whether it's in an old SharePoint document or somewhere in Confluence, or maybe even was just on a README in a GitHub repo somewhere.
And this is a lot of what we're trying to solve with teamwork graph technology, really understanding relevancy of the ways that you work and the documents that are relevant to you, such that you have to do a little bit less of the document grooming in the background, right? The machine itself gets smarter over time and will know the types of things that you need to work through, right? It's not gonna pull the document from the team from God knows when, 2005, yeah.
Sorry to throw you off.
No, it's not, no.
It's also assuming that those connectors will, your policies allow you to have all those connectors.
Yeah.
So-
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's admin controlled, which connectors are enabled. Permissions are respected based on the permissions that are available through the third party. Yeah, so as an individual, once the admin has connected the third party data source, as an individual, when you go and you want to connect Slack, et cetera, to your Rovo ecosystem, you check the box, and then it will put you through an auth system. So you have to be able to authorize into your third party. We validate permissions both on the way out, when it first, I don't know why I can't come up with the word. Yeah, once it authenticates, once it scrubs the data, it's not the right word, I can't come up with the word today. But once our search engine scrubs the data to understand what's where, when you write that query and you want to get the information back, it'll authenticate again on the way back, just to make sure nothing's changed. So it's authenticated both ways. The platform's built that way.
Is it also based with each one based on their permissions in each? Like, does it go as the user running or?
Yes, yes, user level permissions.
Okay, specifically with that, it got me thinking back to the same way that Salesforce handles it in terms of wherever you're at, it always respects your profile and permissions being separate things in Salesforce, so that you can only see things based on where you are in your hierarchy and what you can actually activate based on where you are in Salesforce itself. And regardless of how you actually connect into the system, it is always respected. So where there's saying Salesforce is Salesforce is Salesforce, regardless of what system you're in. So it's kind of nice that it comes back with that, because you don't have to worry about individual users getting access to things that maybe they shouldn't. But then also in other cases, on the other side of that, having something with full admin permissions. Let's say you're hooking this up to do some kind of legal discovery. When did somebody know about this particular thing going on? At least it can look across everything if it needs to.
Yeah, so there would be sort of background information on the meta layer of what's going on, but as an individual, permissions are respected at your individual level. Yeah. I think we're on the same page. One of the things that's really interesting that when we're out there talking to customers about like use case, what do I do with all this technology? What do I do with this platform? We've been finding a lot of luck in talking about software development lifecycle. And so sort of your classic SDLC up here, everything from, incorporating customer feedback all the way through to deploy and QA, et cetera, et cetera. We're looking at each stage along the way and how can we deploy AI to make that faster, more efficient, and more accurate. And so that's sort of where our head is at in terms of Rovo agent technology. What you see here is breaking that down one level deeper. And if we look at each step and how can we actually accelerate software delivery with generative AI? And so from synthesizing customer feedback to elaborating on an epic, breaking down epics into features and stories, all the way down to the build, to crafting release notes, we're starting to identify different ways where we have specific agents or specific features to be able to focus on each of those areas. And so this is kind of where the rubber meets the road on how to deploy agents in a workforce. I have a video, a demo showing this particular process in action. Would that be interesting to see?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see the real stuff.
Send it.
Cool. Okay, I can. Let's see. I'm going to share this tab. We're going to try to not have an AV nightmare. We practiced before. It worked before. Robert, are you ready with me?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Atlassian Intelligence gets applied to software development. So what I have here is a kind of generic, a representative flow of how software development might work. I say representative because I know in a lot of organizations, exactly how you do things will vary. There's lots of variations about how software gets built. But I think this is pretty representative, that the things start with a product manager like role, trying to understand the customer feedback. They need to elaborate epics and break them down, turn them into individual features and stories. Somebody has to do the hygiene of maintaining all of the things that then are in the details. Engineers have to build executable specifications. That's one form of doing testing, or how they might get started with their development work. That also varies. And in the end, you want to sweep it all up and figure out how to communicate all that back to customers. Now, I know in a lot of organizations, there's a real focus on how generative AI can help the productivity of those individuals. And that's a useful signal. There's something very important in understanding that a product manager or a scrum master or an engineer are given the tools that help make them productive. And so it is worth measuring that signal. But we think the real value for whole teams comes from not necessarily saving 25% of 20 hours, which if you do that enough does add up, but in saving something like 25% of 2 days, the wait time between product manager and the next role. And 2 days is kind of a small one, and it's not the same role. But consider a case like this, like the product manager puts a story in Jira, and the engineer goes to pick it up, and the product manager forgot to write the acceptance criteria. Now what does the engineer have to do? They have to go back to the product manager. That's probably a Slack channel or something like that. So that's already async, and that's going to take some time. Worst case is the product manager is in a different time zone. So now we're talking about a full 24-hour cycle before that developer can actually start. So that's where these wait times come from, and why it's so critical to focus on those instead of just the productivity of particular individuals. So that's why our theory is about having agents that help with these specific tasks, that both help the individual do those tasks in the right way and provide, you might call it a better quality, like that there's a better handoff to further downstream roles. And that handoff comes from writing in a certain style, or having a more crisp set of words to read from, so less, like more concise, more clear. And so this is where writing is really an essential art of communication that generative AI can help with if applied in the right places in the flow of work. So let's see what that looks like now. I have a project where it happens to be Jira Service Management, but that doesn't mean that Rovo can only make sense of feedback coming in through this channel. It just happens to be the agent I'm going to be applying now, which could be applied to other kinds of sources as well. And what I'm going to do is go work on a page where we've got the proposals for the big kinds of ideas that we are writing. So go in here and edit, and I'll show you one of the first ways that we can interact with Rovo and artificial intelligence is through this /AI command that pops up an inline generative AI session. So I don't have to go outside of the flow of work. And I'm going to use this Jira theme analyzer to extract some themes from this DRS project. So I'll use one of these default, call these conversation starters. They help avoid the kind of blank slate problem. So I know what I'm supposed to do with these. I'm going to try to get the top themes. Now it does say from my recent issues, and that might mean broader than I expected. So, okay, there's the DRS project, DRS. No, in fact, it did surmise that I need them from the DRS project, but as in a lot of cases, I need to be a little bit adaptive. It's spelled out what query it ran and how it found them, but really all on the table. So we'll get that again. What we're a little insistent on putting some bit this time. But what did I get? That there is a theme. There's a rough percentage of how much of the issues are reflected there. There's a summary and some of the data points that it found in terms of concrete issues. So we'll insert that in. Great. So the next kind of work that I might do is to take one of these concepts and elaborate it. and elaboration in the context of Atlassian, and I think in many organizations, is that you can't just go build something because you have 2 words that you found as a theme. You have to justify it. What is this going to improve in the customer world, or what are the business outcomes that it will have for us as a product company? And personally, I don't think AI is really out for product managers' jobs. There's just not an agent that would really meaningfully be able to go reach all the places that it takes to make one of these cases. There's a lot of intuition there. There's a lot of organizational knowledge that's built into real people's heads. But there are certain sections within this document where a product manager really needs to get things right, like this business outcome hypothesis. That's something where it really helps to put things in the right form so people recognize it quickly. The more readily they recognize it, the faster you can get an epic like this approved and start moving ahead. So we'll take a look at a separate UI way that I can interact with artificial intelligence and help work on this answer. I'll use an agent again. This time I'm going to use the product requirements expert. And I'm going to use this to say, it's got the context of this page. What is it? So even though it is in a separate chat window, it's really right here on the page with me. And sure enough, it recognizes this pic. And if I say business outcome hypothesis, one of the things that why this is helpful is we need it to be in a certain form that everybody will recognize and carries with it the weight of data that has been gathered within this page. Okay, so there's a lot of extraneous stuff in here, so we'll nudge it one more time. I just want one. And then we'll see how we get that into the page. So it's okay, that's great. That's what I'm looking for. And now I use this insert into page to bring that over. Okay, so that's another way that I use, as a product manager, I use artificial intelligence. Now let's look at one more feature that actually has been existing in between Confluence and Jira for a long time that helps us take and create a Jira issue from it. Now, in prior iterations of this feature, before we had artificial intelligence in the platform, it was a dumb feature, to be honest. It only knew enough that this text should be populated into the summary field. And already what we can see here is that this summary doesn't match the text exactly. It's actually been rewritten and crafted in a way that will help it better fit into the epics that I already have in this project. Moreover, it has taken content from this page and filled it into the description field to help me have a better start as I go over to the Jira side. So making a lot more use of the full context of the page that I have than before. So, okay, we'll hit create. We'll notice that it did pop up with a message that says the issue was created. And then if I just give it a sec, there it is showing the link to Jira right in the page. So I don't lose that. So we'll click through. Now we're on the Jira side. I'll show off a couple things over here just to kind of prove the same way of interacting in the flow exists over here on the Jira side as well, in that editor context. So in this case, I will use this to want this in user story form, just to be pedantic, I guess. But this will rewrite that into I want to show that form of users that we usually get, of user stories that we usually expect to see. So there is that user story form. Okay, but that's not as much the important thing as that there are a couple places sprinkled all over that help people stay in the flow of work and use artificial intelligence. Another one is this suggest child issues, which when I click will use the context of the description text to help suss out what are some potential subtasks or user stories for this. For this, I get a chance to line item veto, and then I can accept all, and away it goes. So with the integration, or with the agent running behind the scenes in an automation, that's kicked off every time I move an issue to in progress. I get a readiness review. And this review happens to include these 4 criteria: completeness, clarity, auditability, and estimated. And since I just created this issue, obviously there's no estimation. Some of these other ones we got lucky because Rovo wrote it for us. But let's use that to follow this thread a little bit. that might not be everybody's readiness criteria. I know like this can vary from team to team. The definition of ready is one of the things that the team kind of needs to own for itself. So our recommendation is to take this out of the box readiness checker and use it as the starting point for each team. Then to change what the definition of ready means, we simply use this low code, no code way of interacting with the agent behavior. Maybe security is one of these. Check for this. And this would be the prompt engineering part in building an agent. And then there are a few other things we can change in here. There's the conversation starters. You saw me interact with those a little bit at the beginning of the demo. There's this knowledge or knowledge source, which can be tuned. And another context, broader generative AI, talking about the concept of a grounding knowledge or a retrieval augmented generation. That's effectively what this is. So I can use a selection to hone down the information available to Rovo so that it better tunes the outcome, the resulting answers. So by selecting a space called Agile, effectively here I have taught it my Agile practices. Okay, that's pretty useful. And then we saw this particular agent just now create a comment on an issue. For some critiques, maybe it's more appropriate that I would create a separate page. And by checking on or off these options, we're giving this agent these additional powers to take actions. Okay, so that's an example of how I could build this by hand. We also have a platform called Forge. I would call it an app platform as a service, which means it's hosted on Atlassian, helps you build agents, whether, for example, if you found that you had a knowledge source you wanted to reach that wasn't in this list, or an action that isn't out of the box for us in a fully code-oriented way, you can use the Forge platform to build custom agents. Okay, so we left off, we saw a little bit about product manager. We kind of checked in on that, how the Scrum Master can turn their focus from the TDM of Jira hygiene and turn a bit more to helping teams be effective. Now let's look at what the life of an individual engineer might be like when you have Rovo in the mix. So we'll go into a project and open up my ID. Oh, it's on the right screen here. I've got Copilot up and available. And for those who aren't in the coding world every day, I'll point out that Rovo exists within the world of Copilot as something called an extension. So Copilot has this extensibility mechanism that lets us plug in, and just like the knowledge sources do for Rovo agents, an extension provides the ability for Copilot to go get information through that particular source. So Rovo has access to Jira and Confluence, and through that I can ask it something like, what are the issues assigned to me? And because of the mapping between the Copilot world and Rovo, it knows who is and can use that information to go grab the issues from Jira and provide them to me in this chat context. Now, the ability to access Jira from an ID isn't by itself new, but the ability to interrogate those issues rather than just see them in the context is what's really powerful here. So, for example, I can ask it for some additional detail on this IPR 94 and just get a section of the text out of what can be an awfully long description field. I need the acceptance area from IPR 94. Rather than having to have separate fields that help make this more obvious and easier to navigate to, just use the long form description as it's intended to be used, and then using Rovo can interrogate certain parts of that. So, okay, now with those, now I can bridge over to the power of Copilot to change natural language into code. I need certain criteria in syntax. And if you're not familiar with this BDD, behavior-driven development, or specification by example, what it will create here is a kind of text that is readable both by human beings and by machines in a very particular way that helps us get into test automation. So that's what this snippet has generated is, and then I can use the affordances of GitHub Copilot to insert them into the right place and continue the working with code using the power of Copilot. Okay, so that's painting this overall picture about how different roles interact with artificial intelligence in a software lifecycle using Atlassian Rovo. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, very
that
cool.
was there's a lot of stuff that happens there kind of quickly, but hopefully that helps to make it real.
I like how you can take the out of the box and copy it to kind of customize it to be your own. I would assume you can change the name of it and like
Correct.
put it somewhere where people know choose this, not that one.
Correct. And you can create one completely from scratch, right? And you could go through and do your own script. But sometimes it's nice to work with stuff that we've built and we've tested, and then now you just
It's mostly right. We just want to do a few tweaks to it.
make it your own. And we get to being in a platform. It's a nice position because you get to kind of understand how people tend to do their work, and so it gives us an advantage of building stuff that we hope will be useful. So that's generally what I have for today. I think that's pretty good for now.
Yeah.
So that's Atlassian Rovo, and that's generative AI for software development. And free to, if you guys want to do any Q&A, or if you guys want to hang out, or if you want to play with some stuff, we can do that. Yes.
I want to know how long it took you guys to build Rovo.
How long?
How long have you guys been working on this?
Honestly, Rovo was the initial launch was about 6 months. So
Wow.
it was a heavy investment to get GTM in about 6 months.
Nice.
AI platform underneath was probably another 2 years before that. But Rovo itself to get to GTM was just like an all hands on deck, incredible effort to get it out in 6 months. And you will continue to see tremendous development, right? Next year when we do this, it's going to continue to evolve. At Team, you're going to see a lot of announcements on what we're doing with it. I can't quite say yet, but it's coming right around the corner. Try not to say anything.
So will this be generally available if you have a license to Jira, or is it an add-on?
Well, wait and see.
Or for those that attend,
Wait and see.
well, what I really like is when you're like, if you're in Confluent, you hit the slash and like a menu normally would pop up and it's right in there.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go somewhere else. It's like right with the options that you would choose, you can start to chat right from within that.
Yeah, no, our vision is to make this technology available to everybody who uses our platform.
Okay.
So we use Align in the place that I'm from
Uh-huh.
and for the PA planning. So do you have any plans or do you have any features in Rovo that can create objectives, dependencies, right?
Yeah.
By automatically, like looking at the epics that we have, reviewing that, creating by its own?
Yeah, it's the number one ask that my customers are asking for. So yes, but not today.
Okay.
It's coming soon.
And also the second question. So in Jira, so we have sprints planned and everything, but like sometimes we see like this is our original estimate of hours, but the team goes more than that. Do you have any alerts or something to let the scrum masters or the product know, like we are going out of timeline because the story was originally estimated like 12, but it's going like 20 now. Is there anything like that feature?
I imagine that's something that you could build an agent for specifically. Yeah, so it would need some production, it would need some work, but that sounds like exactly the type of use case that we'd love to see.
So if you did something like that and use an agent, would that be reactive? Whereas let's say a scrum master would have to go in today and activate the agent to say, do I have anything that's behind? Or would it be something that's proactive and say maybe generating a report on a scheduled basis that would say, hey, just to let you know, because it sounds like those might be two different use cases.
Yeah, exactly. My understanding is that it would be something that you could program on a time-based type of delivery. You know, once a week, it could read a certain amount of data and then respond and say, this is within X parameter, this is not within X parameter, et cetera. But this is a little bit on edge case type of world where I haven't seen it in production yet. So coming soon, I think.
Yeah, I like the live one because like you can go right now, like to go to EasyBI and create a report, what was logged, what was over.
Yeah.
But I want like something like, okay,
Yeah.
this story is close to 19 hours, but it was originally 20
Yeah.
hours. Give me an alert. So like myself, or I'm a product manager, myself or Scrum Master, I go and tell like, look, what's going on with the story. Tell us.
Yeah, I
Even though
mean,
if we miss stand-ups or they don't join stand-ups.
totally, it makes total sense and definitely something that we will get to. I think, you know, right now we sort of like, we've got the platform and we've got the capabilities, and now we got to build on top of the capabilities.
Do you see this taking Jira automation to the next level?
100%. That's the right way to think about it.
Yeah, that's how I was thinking about it. I was like, all right, well, there's limitations in Jira automations, right? There's only so many things that you can do. There's actually a lot of things you can't do that I could think of. This seems like it would be able to do a lot of those things.
This is where you should be looking to take that next level. Yeah, so within the automation flow, you can have it say, okay, now call XYZ agent every time that this automation flow goes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's where like the really exciting stuff is starting to happen.
Because to kind of go with some of that and just kind of bridging the two together would be kind of nice, running a particular report like that saying, hey, am I behind? And having the agent spit out something saying based on the different data sources it was connected into, hey, yeah, based on what I can see, you have a story that's running behind. There's been no GitHub commits into this for this particular user story, but because I'm also connected in Outlook, I realize you have actually got this assigned to somebody who's showing an out of office for this entire past week.
Yeah.
Like maybe they didn't even recognize that they had something assigned to that particular person. It's like, oh yeah, this is probably why.
Yeah, I like the thinking. Not quite yet, but close.
I think the agent part is probably gonna be the most helpful because it sounds like you can take action, you can do things just by naturally typing to it. Like he showed that it created a story or something from his conversation. So I think that would be a big help.
So like the difference between chat and agents, you know, the chat is sort of the direct interaction with the LLM, so to speak, so that you have the conversation. It remembers who you are, historical, what things you've asked, it has context. And so there's a lot that you can do in the chat in terms of retrieving, you know, I have a question about this, help me find this, etc. The agent is where you want to get, once you want to get really custom tailored on what you want it to do, and, you know, and put it into an automation is really a perfect example of it.
Cool.
Can you go back? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
My question is about like when you're taking a look at the stuff that's going to happen in the next 6 months, what level of work is being done to integrate with like Atlassian University for courses and possibly certifications as well for Rovo?
Yeah, I'm sure it will all be there. There, I saw yesterday, I think there's a Rovo piece in Atlassian University.
Okay.
I haven't done it yet, so I'm not sure how detailed it is.
I haven't looked in a little bit. That's why unfortunately I was asking.
Yeah, and there's an Atlassian Intelligence as well, which again is sort of confusing, but that'll all soon go away. So yeah, it's coming. Like what you're seeing is, it's like kind of Ian and I are the ones building this content right now. So this is like, it's almost, beta is the wrong word, but like we're building it as we go. Yeah, and so from here, then it goes down and it goes down a few streams and we test it out, we run it, and we teach the teams on it, and from there, eventually it gets into the university. Yeah, so you got like pre-university credit here.
Gotcha.
Nice. I was gonna ask you if you, per what you just said, can you go back to what you said earlier about Atlassian Intelligence and talk a little bit about like,
Sure.
So is this gonna like replace Atlassian Intelligence and you would see more like Rovo integration into especially into the Atlassian tool set? Or was Atlassian Intelligence like the first step to Rovo?
That's the right way to think about it. So sort of in the evolution of AI at Atlassian Intelligence was the original core team that was built to do machine learning, understand LLMs, how do we build a platform capability that we can then, all the teams at Atlassian can tap into for their various products. And so as that team built a capability, those capabilities then got sort of plug and play into various features of Atlassian software. And so you see Atlassian Intelligence as a feature available in specific software, but the Atlassian Intelligence features as they exist today are not aware sort of the broader ecosystem of Atlassian products or 3P connectors or et cetera, right? They have one function, it's kind of a function button. You can do specific things with it, but you can't change it. Yeah. Rovo was then the next stage, which was, okay, let's think bigger, let's think more strategically. And so Rovo was built in that next sprint. What you're going to see very soon is a lot of the Atlassian Intelligence brand will go away. The features will be integrated throughout the software, and then the Rovo will be the search, chat, and agents. Yeah. But yeah, it's a really good question. I get it every single day. Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
Looking forward to it.
I can, if anybody's interested, I can leave my email if anybody wants to follow up with more questions or anything. I'm happy to be a resource and connect you all. So my name is Doug McMillan, and so my email is just d.mcmillan@Atlassian. Yeah. My handwriting is terrible. D. McMillan with an E.
Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
What would you say to companies that are scared of AI and have put so many restrictions around it that, you can't use ChatGPT on our computers. You can't use Atlassian Intelligence. Like companies seem to be, I've worked for 2 companies now in the last 6 months. And companies seem to be terrified of it. What would you tell them? Or how would you convince them basically to buy into something like this? Especially those who've never turned Atlassian Intelligence on because they were so scared of it. Yeah, I'm sure Sugong is raising her hand too.
So I've got this whole other talk track.
Is it all secured, like within your instance, or is it?
Yeah, so we have a whole sort of trust and security talk, right? But basically the platform was built from the ground up with trust and security in mind. Yeah, so everything is secure. The platform is built on, we have data residency, we have ISO compliance, we have, there's a whole sort of rigmarole around that that's not worth going into here today. So yes, like when there's a conversation, when there are business stakeholders that are interested in using AI, but then there are other sort of data stakeholders who are hesitant, then we have sort of a workflow that we work them through to show them each step of the way. And that gets us there. But I want to come at it from a different angle.
It's like in Rally, sorry Rally, but I noticed like the little bot pops up there in the corner, so they just enabled it. I don't think anybody really knew it just popped up there, but it's, I imagine, just searching what you have in a tool, which sounds like what they're doing.
Yeah.
Versus like this internet AI thing.
Well, like at AAA, for instance, like Atlassian Intelligence automatically turned on in the Jira and Confluence instance. And then they were like, we have to turn this off like right away. I'm like, what do you think it's going to do? I mean, it summarizes a Confluence article, for goodness sakes. It's not anything super
sophisticated. It doesn't connect to other corporate environments. Say, well, what USAA does with that.
It's not going to take, it's not going to take over the whole world, Yeah. And then at USAA, it's worse because, they're a financial institution, right? I work for the insurance side, but still, I mean, they're a bank, and so they're very, very specific about security. So
healthcare,
Got a good answer for that. And I think the way that we're looking at this now with AI and all the different tools that are available that can help us do all these different things, in the end, they're just tools. And in the same way, when you think way back in the before times, how it used to be like Jira 4 and all those times when it was, we have the server build for Jira, and this is what we have, it's on our intranet, this is what we do. And then when people started talking about cloud hosted services, they were like, 9, verboten, thou shalt not, thou will never. And we had some of the same conversation, whereas we are never gonna do that, we're not gonna have something that's hosted by anything else. But now if you think about like how many companies out there are using infrastructure like Amazon AWS and all those other services that are meant to do it, it just needs the proper framework, the proper backing guidelines, legal restrictions, and all the things that we now have in place because we've learned a couple of lessons, but then it will eventually get into being the same situation to where everybody will use it for what it is they need to do. It'll be properly restricted and administered in all the different ways, but it's not like any of the reaction is going to be different because it will always be, I don't want some other tool doing that work. And then in a couple of years, it's going to be, I don't understand how we ever live without it because of all of the magical, wonderful things that it can actually do. And it sounds like that, right? It sounds Wizard of Oz type right now, but in a few years, it's just going to be, oh, we're so much more productive because this. It'll spit out those KPIs that make sense, not in the ways that people using gray matter are drafting them right now, but it's like, oh, I'm actually looking at all of the data, not just the data that comes to mind in that particular moment. But it's going to be like, we're so much more efficient now because of all this stuff. We just got to get over that knee-jerk reaction hurdle that always comes when something like this comes into place. And if you take a look at like a simple user story case of, we're going to go into a retro and we're going to say, what problems did we actually face? If you get AI to say, okay, yeah, you said that these are the things that happen along the way, but they're the things that were most emotionally reactive while you're in that meeting itself. Oh, this thing made me mad and I just want to talk about it for 45 minutes. But if you go in ahead of time with an AI representation of, I looked at the commits, I looked what people did, I looked at, these are the defects associated with these certain things. These are the things that actually blocked you, and everybody in the room goes, yeah, that kind of was what actually happened. It's going to be the thing that we can take the emotional side of what's happening up here between the ears and put it against more of the data than we've ever had access to before, and it's going to make us more productive because of that.
Yeah, that's very well put. Let the data speak.
Yeah, very well put, yeah.
And a lot of what I'm seeing with Atlassian especially is they came at it from we need to secure the stuff first. And a lot of the initial AI stuff did not. So I am completely with the knee-jerk reaction to a lot of it because it's like, you have absolutely no control over what it's doing, where it's pulling the data from. It's like you give it access to your data. Now my intern can pull up, financial reports that maybe you shouldn't because it wasn't built into the framework. It wasn't considered because it was too new. So I think in a couple of years, we'll have some of those actual, we really need to clamp down on this and control what you can see because we need to utilize the tool appropriately and not have data leaks. And those controls are coming in and you see them in Atlassian built it from the ground up to have that. So it's like I'm much more open to the Atlassian stack having access to our stuff than to anything else that my developers find off the shelf because it's like it's got absolutely no security controls right now.
So question, sorry, were you going to say something again? So how would you break it up by only allowing the Rovo to access certain documents, certain projects or products in Atlassian versus others? I mean, there's so many teams across CBS that would use this that we wouldn't want to be sharing that access and sharing documents. So how is it that you can break that up?
I guess there's a couple different layers to that, right? There's like layer one that we described in terms of individual access. Individuals only have a permission to access, or they only can access what their permissions allow them to access as is. Right? So no one can see what they're not supposed to see based on your core permission structure.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
There will be additional layers of sort of management and governance built into the platform that the admin will have more control over sort of who has access to what kind of thing. And that's in process right now.
Okay. So if you had access to a team or to a Confluence page or something, if you have the access, it could see it. If you don't have the access, it might not even have.
Correct.
I see.
It'll mirror your user base permission structure as it exists.
Okay.
That's why
Getting back to the sort of like AI
Scares.
it's like the go no go. Should I take the risk? Is the data a risk versus should I move into AI as a business? I think it's a pretty fascinating discussion because really what we're seeing is if you can understand that, like, in current business environment, technological capability is probably the greatest strategic advantage in terms of your ability to turn out software or digital products to the market that are accurate, that are relevant, that are on time. That is probably the greatest strategic advantage in corporate America today, right? So what we've seen past 10 years, like, digital products have become the most significant strategic advantage for a company. If we stand on that, and then if we understand that sort of the software development life cycle is the underpinning of that, or is the modern version of the automation engine, the factory engine of the old days. Today, software development is sort of the new factory model. Now, if we're looking at generative AI and how generative AI can accelerate and make more accurate and more concise that software development, generative AI really becomes the next great change agent that's going to ultimately impact the economy at large. And it's going to impact which companies take advantage of this to be able to deploy technological products faster, more accurately, versus the ones that won't. And it will become the next great economic cycle of change and growth. Companies will be destroyed and new companies will be created on the backs of this. And so if you're in an executive position, like, your choice is to wait or to be an innovator, right? And that's really what a lot of these executives are in the process of deciding right now. The innovators will continue to eat the lunch and they will become the next great companies, and the ones that are not innovating are going to get destroyed. This is really the engine that's doing it. And so that, to me, is probably the most important argument. And then from there, it just becomes a matter of, like, step by step working through the understanding of the data classification and how it works and how trust plays into the systems and making sure the customers sign off on that. What I'm seeing, many of the largest financial institutions are moving ahead with this. Yeah. The ones that are getting stuck on at what point does any data get passed to an LLM that's external, or is the LLM self-hosted within the Atlassian boundaries? That's kind of the line where a lot of the questions are coming up. Yeah. So that's like the main thing that's a sticking point. You know, does data get transferred to an external LLM, or does it stay within Atlassian boundaries?
And the answer is?
Currently, the data is anonymized and passed to an LLM, but we're building out the capability to have self-hosted LLMs. Okay. So if you have to pay for it, but it's like if you need to keep everything within the Atlassian boundaries, you'll have that opportunity. So we'll self-host the LLM. Yeah. That's the main sticking point. As an individual environment, none of the other environments are trained on yours, right? There is training within your environment to help make your environment run better, but no, there are boundaries between individual customers. There's no cross-training across customers.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's learn something.
Yeah.
I'll give you a really nice compliment. Your event, your presentation was just as good as Mark Cruz was.
Wow, that's a high bar.
It is, totally.
This material is a lot more complicated.
That's true.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Cool.
Anything from online? Anybody?
Actually, there was a comment from Sean Doyle when we were talking about the risks. He brought up Skynet, of course. So,
There's that. It just, eventually at some point, AI is going to know where all the bodies were buried because it knows where all of the secrets are, all the details behind it, especially just with all the administrators. But it still has issues like hallucination, and there's still issues with being able to come up with brand new content. So maybe, but probably, hopefully a while. Okay.
Skynet is a Terminator.
That's what I thought you were talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
All right,
That's it.
you want me to shut down
Not my topic to answer.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Probably, we should probably close the virtual session by saying that our next meeting, both in person and virtual, 2 weeks from today, held, the in-person is going to be at Gitkraken's HQ, which is over in the Promenade, North Scottsdale. It'll have both myself, Ed Gale, barbecue extraordinaire, Alex Ortiz. We will be talking about DevOps and our barbecue and the developer experience, along with, I think, Ken from Gitkraken.
Yes.
Food will be provided by Gitkraken. It's going to be barbecue. It's going to be good barbecue.
Sold.
And bring your books if you have one. to have
Yeah,
signed.
there's, there may be a book signing portion where if you have the, Atlassian, DevOps Toolchain Cookbook, which was written by myself, Ed Gale, Alex Ortiz, and Rodney Nissen. Yes, we will be signing those if we haven't already. So
Except Rodney won't be there.
Rodney won't be there. He is recovering from heart surgery.
Covering is good.
Yes.
Yes, recovering is good.
Our best to Rodney.
Yep. All right, so signing off on the virtual portion. See you around.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.